Well, we're back in the library with Dr. Sproul, in your library, Dr. Sproul.
Yes,
It's nice to see you again.
it's good to be seen.
So I have two books here. We'll cheat. This is supposed to be one book, but we're going to cheat. We'll put two together.
Okay.
Because these are sermons. And
Right.
they're sermons by the same guy.
Yes.
So we have John Calvin's Sermons on Galatians and John Calvin's Sermons on Ephesians. So let's do the Sermons on Galatians first. In fact, when I came in here, this book was on your desk.
Oh, yes. Well, the reason it was on my desk, Steve, is because as we speak, I'm preaching through Galatians.
Yes, at St. Andrews.
And of course, this is what Calvin did. And I mean, if you see how fat this book is,
These are
you know
thick
how
books.
long Calvin spent on his preaching series through Galatians. But it's interesting to me. This is special to me because, first of all, one of our teaching fellows wrote the foreword for it. Bob Godfrey, Dr.
Right.
Godfrey wrote this. And I'm enjoying preaching through Galatians, but not only do I read these sermons in conjunction with my sermons on Galatians, but Calvin also wrote a commentary on Galatians, which was distinct from his sermon series. Yeah. You have the sermons, which are expositions of the book, and then you have his more academic commentary on Galatians. So these mean very much to me.
The two come together.
Yes.
You know, I remember when you started the series on Galatians, you said you were praying that God would give you the strength to finish the series. And you were also praying that it was the longest sermon series ever on the book of Galatians.
Yes, I did say that.
So how long was Calvin's sermon series?
I don't know how many.
Let's see, we get a count here.
How many there are in there, but
It's a very thick book.
Yes.
We are up to 1,000 pages in this book, and you know it's just a fascinating thing. There's 42, so there were at least 42 sermons. I think that's it, 42.
Yeah, but they're long.
They are long,
Yes.
and they're very meaty, but they're just so rich. You know, it's like you're saying, when you get to the commentaries, it's got all this interesting technical data,
Right.
even. And,
Exactly.
and it's almost sort of the first modern commentary.
Well, I can
Calvin.
remember when I was in seminary, it was a liberal seminary, and of course they were very critical of the reformers and everything.
Right.
But the one thing they said was that Calvin's exegetical studies
Yeah.
were absolutely world class, and they couldn't find much to criticize, even from the 20th century perspective that they were speaking.
Right.
They were still in awe of his philological mastery and exegetical precision there. And a lot of that is true also for Luther.
Yeah.
Luther was a linguist.
He was, yeah. And Calvin had his training was as a scholar.
Yes.
He was poised, working on Seneca, and
Yes.
engaged in the classics.
Exactly.
So, but then you come to these sermons, and you know they're really rich. So we've got sermons on Galatians. We've also got another thick book here of John Calvin's sermons on Ephesians. And
this is special.
This
is special to me for two reasons. First of all, just not too distant past, I finished a evening series of lectures on Ephesians.
Right.
And Ephesians is one of my favorite books. And of course, this group of sermons that Calvin gives us on Ephesians has a double meaning to me, because I received this book in 1990, in May, from two dear donors who had been longtime donors of Ligonier, Marge Trimble and Carol Brown. And so they gave this book to me from the Banner of Truth as a gift in appreciation for Ligonier ministry. And that has sentimental value to me as well as theological value.
I'd say they know you pretty well. They gave this to you as a gift.
Yeah.
You know, these sermons on Ephesians, I think I remember reading this at one point, that when Calvin was preaching these, during one of his sermons, he was so intense that he actually burst blood vessels during his preaching. I think it's written in here.
Oh, I do that every time.
There is something about being passionate about
just this past Sunday, we have a fellow that that helps me get into the pulpit because I have a hard time getting up the stairs, and
It's quite a pulpit to
it
ascend.
is a high one,
Yeah.
and I even actually have to sit to preach, and so I'm on this high chair, and just as I got into the chair, this fellow that helped me just whispered in my ear, "Preach like your hair's on fire."
That'll add a sense of urgency
Yes, it does.
to what you're talking about.
So,
We look at these, if you put these two together, this is just a massive work. And it just reminds us, I think sometimes we think of Calvin as the theologian, and it's the institutes.
Right.
Everybody talks about the institutes. But at his heart, he was a pastor, and he was a pastor theologian.
well, one of the great things I've said about it is that, to me, the greatest in history.
Yeah.
You think about Augustine, the greatest theologian of the first millennium, arguably, of Christianity, and even Anselm,
Right.
Luther, Calvin, Edwards. These were the great geniuses of the theological world. They were all pastors.
They were all pastors.
Because they all, and one of the things that I learned when I was in seminary was in studying these fellows, I said, these are world-class scholars, but they were also battlefield theologians. They took their message to the people.
Yeah.
And I've tried to model my ministry after them in that regard.
And the beauty of this is they're still taking the message to the people.
Yes.
You can pick up these sermons and just read through them, and they're very nourishing
Oh,
and encouraging.
Yes.
And the thing I find about them is it's just so you look at a lot of preaching, it's sort of something to get you through this week, which is great. But that sort of centering on eternal truths and the gospel and the central doctrines that are just timeless.
Exactly.
That you really need in your life. Not just the timely, but the timeless. And that's what these sermons are great
They
for.
are.
So.
Yes.
So you've got John Calvin's Sermons on Galatians. We'll have to return this back to your desk. 'Cause
Yes.
You've got to preach this Sunday.
Yes.
So maybe Calvin will offer a little help as you put
Yes.
the finishing touches. And I know you do not manuscript your sermons,
No,
so
I
you know
don't.
you're not working on a manuscript.
I don't.
It's all up in the
But I
head,
have right next to them, I have Luther's
saw.
on Galatians, so.
I saw the other thing I saw on your desk too was Machen's Christianity and Liberalism.
Yes.
So that helps when you're preaching
It
through
certainly
Galatians.
does,
too.
yes.
Well, Dr. Sproul, thank you for letting us visit your library, and thank you for letting us talk about these great books.
You bet.
Thanks.